Welcome to my show. Welcome to my channel. Welcome to Lionsgate. We've come full circle. The things that are taking place today can't be comprehended by a lot of people because these are the end days. Time out of time, we return back to Temple of Mu, Maya's calendar. We have retrieved all the blueprints to Divine Mother's Temple, gone back into time and purged all of the sacrifice blood, freed all of the ancestors, blocked past fallen energies of past timelines of coming forward. Ever since 2012, we've been traveling backwards in time to clean up the past timelines, as all the planets align astrologically to past timelines, and us returning back to a place we fell from. But there are things that need to take place, and things that need to be understood in the human mind before moving back into heaven on earth with Great Spirit and stuff like this. Doesn't matter where you come from, doesn't matter the color of your skin. This is the return of the rainbow prophecy, and return of the prophecies, the return of the rainbow tribe, the rainbow warriors, and everything that people have heard of. You know, a lot of people stuck in the Christianity and the Bible and so forth, and the Jewish stuff. And there's a lot of spiritual manipulation today within the matrix. Spirituality being hijacked as a whole over time through the manipulation of the original tribes and taking people away through the sacrifice. And but if you people remember last year, and you know, the auroras and everything that has come forth, it's hard to decipher and to separate and understand this reality and this timeline and this situation, because we were born into the fall, and being born into the fall, all these stories, all these fairy tales, Nordic, biblical, Egypt, you know, anything that comes from the past is a fairy tale, and a lot of people pick and choose, you know, which one to follow. Really, it all depends on their culture, where they come from, and what they feel on a soul level. But you know, a lot of people today chasing the unity and the oneness and the rainbow. Follow the meditation timeline with Buddha and so forth, with the chakras, because that's the teachings in this timeline. But Americans being lost in translation when it comes to the truth of spirituality, because people being mutts and the DNA manipulation and the hijacking of the sacred water, the fallen ones getting into the feminine. You know, there's all these storylines, but what does it reflect into today? You know, saying Babylon is falling, but there's a lot of misconception and misunderstanding, because the frequencies aren't in line with the knowing. But there are people that are coming in line, online, in line with the true frequencies of Babylon and what it really means. It's difficult today, but there's, that's the part of researching and trying to understand what everything is. But the frequencies are something different because all of these past timelines have come forth into today and have been purged. But turning back to something that we don't know is what the problem is, and so this is the visual that people need. People need a visual to be able to understand. It can't just be told to them. It goes along with Jesus and so forth. People trying to be Christian, but they're not in the frequency of Jesus because they have, they're not, in the frequency of Jesus because Jesus sacrificed himself and is, and that's the abortion and the aborted ones. It's a frequency. So you have God's children and non-God children, we will say. And the non-God's children, are a little bit upset at the moment because they've lost control of the water. They've lost control of humanity spiritually and can't comprehend, in their mind within the frequencies and so forth. So it's a lot of confusion, and so the people will ignore what's going on out there. Some people, there's like a middle ground. You'll have the people who are not spiritually connected to the truth, but will search out to try and find the truth, the material truth. And but then there's the people who are spiritually connected, who know everything because they've been through the frequencies of the occult, the frequencies of the sacrifice, to understand what creation really reflects. It's good and it's bad, and that's part of returning back to what is good and getting rid of all this bad stuff. But there's so many levels, there's been so many generations, so many timelines of evil, that it's taken many years to purge, going back throughout these timelines and rescuing and freeing the feminine from sacrifice and being held in bondage, spiritual bondage, because they say, there's pieces of you all around the universe, there's pieces of you around all these timelines, and the feminine, and men too, feeling like they've been sacrificed and murdered in past timelines, stuff like this, for standing up for what is right. And but today, being light worker, starseed, one speaking the truth of what everything is, can't be comprehended because it's an interdimensional thing when it comes to spirit animals, aliens, fairy tales, spirituality as a whole, what everything is when it comes to the lizards and ghosts and the spirit of Mother Earth, the spirit of the ancestors. And we've come full circle, and a lot of people can't grasp astrological shifting and timeline jumping because they're not allowed to enter specific knowings and wisdoms, because they have divine key codes to the blueprints of Maya's calendar, and the location of where the Ouroboros bites his own tail, and the rainbow serpent and the rainbow dragon. Everything is invisible, and that's the part where being an architect, being a mason, a true mason, being a temple builder, one of an ancient timeline of Aztecs, Mayans, and what came from before, the true count, count of creation, and stuff like that, where you get into the symbolism of everything that reflects, the number 9 and the number 6 and the 3 and unity and the 1, and everything that comes along with what people don't truly know, because before you were born, or when you were born, your soul knew stuff, and your soul needed to relearn stuff in this timeline to try and understand who you are. But the manipulation from a young child of the elders not being, all the elders being sacrificed, all the elders being killed, and over generations, and being able to manipulate history and feed people a different story or no story at all, to where there's no history, so people can't reflect today to anything in history. And it's just a deep manipulation of what it is. And so, like, we have all these astrological alignments, the full moons and new moons, and Mercury retrograde, and all this stuff. But there's the going back into time, and the going back into time through Pluto 1776 is something that people aren't truly able to grasp on a spiritual front, because it has to be acknowledged in the awakened mind of what timeline we are on, of going back into these alignments. It's where Mercury is at, and that's the part of lifting up the feminine, of Mercury being the gatekeeper, Mercury being the one that went down and went around and picked stuff up, and put pieces back together. Hermes, because Hermes, they got into Hermes, they got into the lion, they got into Judah, they got into the temple, and they've been removed because they were the ones, as the saying goes, getting into, Temple of Judah is the same as getting into the Mayan temple. It's getting into the mama's belly, and it's getting into the Pleiadians and everything of Orion, because there's only one lion. There's the lion at the gate, and it's spiritual symbolism. Mithras, it's the lion, the dragon, the bird, it's the totem pole. It's the symbolism of the missing 13th month of Maya's calendar, because it's the 13th dragon bloodline of Mary, and the number 13 is the divine code to the key. The 13 is the key to get into the temple, because once you get into the temple, then you can get into Jacob's ladder. But the thing of it all, it's all invisible, and people, as you have your symbolism, and you have your sun cross and Star of David, and Swazi and swastika, and these things are your light body ship. It's your chakras. It's your key codes of understanding what a Merkaba truly is, what the tree of life is, and so forth. But no one today is able to truly comprehend the Hermetic Lab and teachings of Hermes, and because it was all corrupted, and as a whole, spirituality was corrupted, because if Mother Earth was taken down and you knew nothing about the underworld, and people treating heavy metal music, satanic music, as a fairy tale, it's part of the corruption. If you look at a lot of stuff today and whatever, but it's a lot of piggybacking on other, spiritual culture. You got the Lionsgate, and it's like people really didn't know about the Lionsgate until 2012. Like it's been here, and you look at the symbolism, but the numerical code of the gate, it sounds like a fairy tale, but it's not. It's just that people don't have culture of understanding past timelines of what this reflects on the level of as above, so below. Because it's the head of the dragon. It's the head of, lion that bites his own tail. But it's within the symbolism of the sacred animals of the beast, because there's the word beast would reflect back to animals, lions and tigers, and just animals alone. But the manipulation of that word to people thinking that it's just bad, but the matrix and the misunderstanding of today, it's people don't have the Mercury, because the people are attempting to lift themselves up on a spiritual level through the Kundalini activation and everything like this, of oneness and meditation and so forth. But there is the not understanding in the awakened mind of Buddha what the truth is. And it is the 3D realm, but it's the spirituality of returning to become an elder, because we are the new elders, but people don't know what they need to grow spiritually, because they're in the matrix of thinking that they know enough. But the elders, the spiritual teachings of Native Americans, of Mayans, of Africans, of wherever, Nordic, people don't speak, distant languages. They don't speak ancient languages. They don't understand their own language, English language, and what everything means, because they don't know who created their language and where it came from, So it's the same with the numerology of what's the code, what's the divine code, what's the frequency of the universe, of combining Mother Earth and Father Sky, and returning your lower self and reconnecting your higher self. There's a lot of the Mercury on the mind, and being attached to all these energies and all these frequencies that bombard us and you, and everything that people can't see because it's invisible. So there's a lot going on today that people can't comprehend, because they're not in tomorrow's energy. They don't know what's going to come next with Ascension, with the end of days, because it's a fortune-telling thing. It's a future-telling thing. It's a remote viewing type of thing. It's an understanding of what's going to come next on the spiritual front, because what happens next comes from spirit. So what comes from spirit You know, like I said, you know, all these ancient demonic evil energies have been blocked, and the only thing that is allowed to move forward is the feminine. And you know, the hijacking of the planets and the over masculinity, you know, the purging of the over masculinity and the separation of the Lucy energies and the satanic energies, you know. So it is the coming back and becoming free into the unconditional love for Mother Earth and what once was, but the sight that within the consciousness of the people must see what they've been ignoring, and it is the frequency of, it's the first frequency out of the tree, and that's can't be understood, because you know, people trying to elevate themselves through these higher frequencies, there will be a moment where they will attempt to pull you back down. There will be a sacrifice. There will be an event, because they want to try and take as many people with them before we close the door. You know, and the door has been closed spiritually into heaven. So, you know, it is what is left outside. It's, you know, what two worlds playing out side by side. It's what you think from the past. You know, whatever timelines you think of demonic a demonic army coming for the temple door. So this is the revelations, the biblical stuff, and you know, all the prophecies all wrapped in one from all cultures from around the world, because there's only one demonic army, and there's a rainbow tribe, and there's people who stand up for what is right. You know, there's really no other way to put it. So that's just a little thing. Welcome to the end days. You know, this is Earth School. This is where you come to learn the hermetic codes of New Earth. So, have a good day.